Well, Marc Evans here with Red Bigfoot IT. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So why don't you give us your elevator pitch about what you guys do?
So we're a managed service provider or a managed services partner, which means that we help companies with just managing their information technology. Sometimes we help companies that already have their own internal IT team, and we'll buddy up with them and make sure that they, whatever they kind of need, right? Wherever the gaps are. A lot of times that could be understanding how all the pieces fit with the rest of the business, but that could just be, helping them out with the tier 1, tier 2 computer stuff.
Okay.
What we really try to focus on, though, is companies who need compliance, regulations, long-term planning, forecasting, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Those are the companies that we really like to partner up with. They have a really good understanding of how we can provide a value to them.
Okay. Can you give me an idea like who your ideal client is and what the services you provide to them?
So there are a handful of verticals that we try to focus on: oil and gas, nuclear, engineering, biomedical manufacturing.
Okay.
But again, those are companies.
A lot of regulations.
That's it. There are companies who are used to working with rules and policies.
Okay.
I try not to take on clients that really kind of shoot from the hip with their decision-making process. It just is not a good fit for us.
Okay, so they need structures in place, and they need to be used to the red tape and the regulations and stuff like that, and then you guys help them with all their IT stuff.
A big part of it is trying to make sure that they don't feel like there's all these barriers in place, right? They
Okay.
don't have to feel that red tape. So we want to make sure that we're consulting through that process to make it so that all the pieces fit organically and feel organic to them.
Okay, nice. Okay, that's awesome. So let's back up a little bit. I wanted to learn how you got to where you are today. So you grew up here in Denver, right?
I did.
Okay. What was life like for you here in Denver growing up?
Oh gosh. So we're part of the forgotten generation, right? And so there was a lot of figure out what you're going to do for yourself and how you're going to entertain yourself. I always ended up being the guy who was always fixing everyone's computers.
Okay. Oh, so even at a young age, you were doing IT stuff.
We could afford one computer, right? Okay. And it was a piece of junk, and so we had to make it stretch way past when it was supposed to. And then I was helping my friends with that, and I got into the overclocking and case modding scene when I lived in Florida.
Okay.
And I was setting up LAN parties and all those kinds of things.
Fun.
But I had no idea you could really make a career out of IT. It was kind of disincentivized at that time.
What year are we talking?
So I graduated high school in 2000 and took a gap year and then started USF 2001.
Okay.
So
nice. But you didn't get an IT degree.
No, my undergraduate's in business administration.
Okay, which helps today probably a lot.
It's actually very helpful right now.
Yeah.
So I love being able to talk metrics and return on investment and have conversations about financials with the CFO. It makes what I do more impactful.
Yeah.
If I come in here with just IT ideas, it's not really going to be successful. They have to be business goals that I align to.
Yeah, and you can't just go and talk in IT jargon, I imagine.
No, absolutely not. You should absolutely avoid
They're going
that.
to get eyes are glossing over. And even just the little bit you've already done so far, I'm trying to hang with you on the IT lingo, but it's hard. I did work for Apple for a little while, but I was doing something way different. So, awesome. So you went to USF in Florida. How did you end up in Florida?
It was really just how do I pay for college?
Okay.
So up here, college was really expensive, even with in-state tuition, and so I figured out that USF was relatively cheap.
Okay.
My dad lived there, so I could live for free
Sure.
effectively.
So you were like a resident.
And oh gosh,
you got in-state tuition.
Yeah, the cost of tuition has just gone crazy recently, obviously. But at the time, it was $1,500 a semester.
Oh, nice. For
effectively.
full time?
And then, for full time.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So it was a part-time job, and I could pay for college without taking on any debt. So it was a slam dunk.
Nice. So you got a business administration degree, and did you get a graduate degree as well?
So I started working on one in Texas, and then the money situation came up. So I did one semester, got all A's, and went, I can't afford this anymore. And there was some interesting things behind that where I wasn't really excited about the program anymore with advertising. What you find out really quickly is that most of the companies that win those awards, they tend to fold up within 1 or 2 years of winning the awards. Okay. So all those really cool, cute commercials that were coming out at that time, we all remember those like amazing Super Bowl commercials and stuff. None of those companies actually did anything for the product for those companies. So I'm a huge fan of utility. And if you are going to sink money into marketing and advertising, you should get a return on investment for it. Those companies weren't.
It's hard to measure that.
It's actually not that hard, but that was the concern I had with the program. Is my undergraduate really focused on how to metric those things, and the graduate program really focused on having cute ideas, and that disconnect from the utility, coming back to how the business would actually benefit from this.
Yeah, was that frustrating for you?
It was disenfranchising. Sure. It was just too big a disconnect. So
yeah, well, I have a question here, but we can go and talk about that. Like, how do you measure ROI? Because in my business, we're creating videos for people, and unless it's like a direct ad that they're going to put ad dollars behind, you know what I mean? Which is a small part of what we do. We create ads on Instagram, Facebook for companies, and they can put money behind that and see the direct ROI, what they paid us plus the advertising money that they dumped into it, and then they can track their sales. And that's like kind of only if they're selling like a widget, or like a product or something, and you can direct it back to that. It's really hard to measure ROI in our world. I try really hard, you know what I mean?
Right.
But other than like just the metrics, really the only thing you can do is show metrics of like views, how many people saw it, versus how many leads they got. But it's hard to do. How do you guys measure ROI in the IT world?
It totally depends on what that service or product that you're selling is, because you want to tie it back to that, of course. A really easy one is like a backup appliance, and you want to measure it against productivity and outages. So you want to have your metrics in place. You want to understand what your uptime is for the normal customer, and then you can measure all that downtime that they have effectively. Then talk to the CFO, get an idea generally of how much it costs to have that outage, right?
Yeah.
And so now you have an opportunity cost return on investment. So,
gotcha. If
I
we can prevent this won't happen, so you can X that, that cost out.
Exactly. So if I can keep you productive, that's the same as
if we save you from one downtime, then we'll pay for ourselves or whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways depending on the product and the service that you're going after, but ultimately, you have to bring it back to solving business goals.
Well, speaking of services, can you kind of lay out? I want to hear a little bit more about the services that you do provide. You don't have to get into super detail. And then, how do you guys charge for that? What do you like? What do you do? By service? Do they have is it a subscription model? What do you guys do?
So we have some flexibility. The one that we like focusing on is the managed services. We will do like projects and things like that, and there'll be time and material and hours. But the managed services is really kind of focused on how do we keep you running? How do we make sure that you don't have external threats, or how do we make sure that we're well protected? And then it has the really basic stuff with if a computer has an issue and we repair it and those kinds of things. So it's really just trying to make sure that their computer infrastructure stays running, and that's what the client really kind of attaches to. But to me, that's every managed service provider should be able to do that. I really try to focus more on the consulting and advising. The more that we're inside that company, we can understand what their unique challenges are, what their threats are, what their risk profile is. We understand their vertical, we understand their competitors. Like, we really put a lot of energy and effort into understanding all of those pieces. And then when we start seeing where they have productivity gaps or downtime or issues, we can help them understand how to better heal that so that they become more successful.
So then how much time are you spending on the front end understanding their business before you even like jump into their IT stuff, actually providing services? So
generally we want to have about a month build-up time where we get in there, we put some tools in there, we try to understand where their gaps are, where their issues are, and we'll do some interviews with parts of the business.
What kind of tools are you installing, and like what are you looking for in that first month?
Oh my gosh, we're going to start getting technical real quick there.
Okay.
But we will deploy tools that let us monitor and manage the environment so we can push updates and make changes behind the scenes nice and easily.
Okay.
We'll do some vulnerability scans and some exploit scans to see where their gaps are and where their issues are.
Okay.
And then there's some things that are already baked into some of the tools they're probably already using that we can kind of take a look at and figure out where those issues are.
Okay.
And then there's more,
antivirus.
And
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think you covered it, at least on the level that our audience is going to understand.
I'm trying to keep high level. Sure.
I appreciate that. Okay, so let's back up a little bit and tell me about what were the factors that sort of in your life drove you to start your business?
Oh gosh, that's great. So I used to work for other managed service providers, and I love.
So after college, you jumped into IT and doing MSPs.
No, so after college, I was a retail manager, and I hated it so much that I joined the Army, and it was better than being a retail manager, honestly.
Okay.
But that gave me a lot of opportunities because I had top secret clearance, and so people start paying more attention. And so I worked for the College State Judicial, and that top secret clearance helped me get into that situation. I worked on the Holmes case, the Aurora shooter, back when those things were not common. That gave me access to other companies later, and it sort of snowballed from there. So it gave me a lot of access into a really kind of wide breadth of being able to be a a troubleshooter in a place where folks have not even performed any level of troubleshooting before, you know?
Okay.
So I've stood
So
inside
you really saw a
reactors and solved problems that no one had solved before. And so a lot of really kind of cool, cute stuff like that.
Okay. So then you wanted to come back to Colorado and start your own business?
Well, I worked for other people for a long time. And the reason why I started doing my own thing was I'd worked for managed service providers for a long time, and they really focus on selling. Yeah. And I'm not the biggest fan of selling for the sake of selling. I really want it to tie back to the customer and the client every time. And so I wanted to make sure that I was always doing my best work. And it's hard to do that when you're selling the wrong products or selling the wrong services. And I need to be able to feel good about myself at night. I didn't want to sell things that people didn't need. Yeah. And so, starting the business really had those kind of two forks really involved. Is I want to do the best work for the clients, and I wanted to feel good about myself, be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's great. That's a good answer. I like that. I think that's what drives a lot of people to start their own business, sort of.
I hope so.
Disenfranchising, or it could be run so much better. You know what I mean? And just, you talk about, I saw the core values on your website. It was ambition, integrity, and creativity. Mm-hmm. I like those a lot. Can you elaborate on those and maybe like how they practically show up in your work?
Oh gosh, I wrote that so long ago. I'm going to have to remember what those were.
Ambition, integrity, and creativity.
So we like working with companies that have a vision, right? If they really are just, this is what we do and this is what we've always done and this is what we're always going to be, that's really not the right fit for us. We want companies that are trying to grow, who are trying to put their foot on the gas pedal and really meet something and do something. It probably really stimulates my ADHD to work on interesting projects and kind of push the ball forward and move the envelope, and as far as the creativity, I think people don't put enough emphasis on solving things creatively and thinking outside the box. If you get kind of used to your silo and you can't see beyond that, you're never going to do well. Working with other departments or working with other businesses. So you have to always be ready to, see things from another angle and from another perspective.
A lot of times in IT, but also in a lot of different areas, it's like, this is the way we've always done it. This is how it's always been done. This is the only way to do it. And maybe bringing an outsider like you can come in and you work in other industries as well. And you see how other industries are doing it. So you're taking the best of what other people are doing and applying it to new industries and in new ways, I imagine. All
the time. Clients only have the perspective that they already have, right? And so we're going in there and we're asking them to do novel things. So, we're asking them to embrace thinking outside the box, or their box. So we have to take on that same energy too. And I'm a big fan that we have to be reinventing ourselves all the time. We have to be able to take a lens and see into our own processes, in the way that we manage ourselves, how we interact with people. We have to always be ready to, update, change, grow. Yeah.
So you started Red Bigfoot a year before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So how has your services and what you guys do, how did the pandemic change that and shift what you guys are doing for your clients?
Yeah. So when I first started Red Bigfoot, I was actually a little jaded against the whole managed service provider model because I'd worked for so many who were just exploitive. And so I focused more on projects. And that went really well up until the pandemic hit. And
all the projects stopped.
Well, yeah, exactly. So projects stopped, and it was about just holding on to the fort, just making things work that currently had previously worked. But all the companies had let go of their own internal IT teams as cost-saving measures. So all of a sudden, they didn't have anybody except for us who was doing this other kind of project-style work. And
do most of your clients have some IT staff, and you guys are just helping them? Or do they most not have any IT staff? They have, they have a secretary that knows how to log into the email.
It's a mix currently. I think as we continue moving in the direction that we're moving in, I want to focus more on the co-managed model. That's a gap that a lot of other MSPs don't like to focus on. They want to be the only fingers in the pot. But I find a ton of value out of working with the internal IT team. They can be they find things that you're never going to be able to find. They communicate with the team and the departments in ways that you're never going to be able to. So, and they're they're good people most of the time. They mean well. I mean, I always have a really strong kinship with
They're
anybody
usually
else who's in
like
IT.
way undermanned. You know what I mean? And overworked, and they're just asked to do too much, I imagine.
Right. So I really like empathize with their situation where I'm like, if I was in their situation, this is what I would want, you know? And so I really try to focus on being that like gap fill to make them successful and help them, you know, move their careers.
Do they feel insecure with you guys coming in though?
Oh gosh. It depends on the company. It depends
And
on how we're brought in.
Personality.
If we get shoved in and we don't get to like really experience the team beforehand, then it can start off in this kind of like adversarial relationship. We have to prove ourselves. And other times it's the IT team who are begging for help, and they finally get that help, and then it just starts off in a really collaborative environment. How
do you overcome that adversarial relationship though?
So almost always it's always just talk, right? It's communicating. It's really kind of showing that you're invested in their success, the company's success, that you're on their team, that you're not trying to push them out. And that's one of the things that we really work with leadership on right up front is we make it really clear we don't want to push out existing IT staff. It'll happen occasionally if there's just a misfit inside their team. But we never want to be a replacement for the internal IT team. Like I said, I really like partnering with those.
Yeah. And you're doing a little more of a consulting role in that role probably, right? As opposed to like installing everything and doing everything for them. You're maybe consulting the team that's already there.
Sometimes we don't have a lot of like pure consulting. A lot of times it'll be consulting, and then we'll do like tier 1, tier 2, and then we'll help out with projects in that tier 3 capability. So
can you explain the tiers? I don't understand. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it is. It's like super subjective, to be honest. So tier 1 is usually you could hire a guy who's got a few training videos under him and maybe like a year. Yeah, exactly. So anything that person could handle is generally a tier 1.
It's probably what we do. We have like a server, and I have that set up and a little wireless network, and
when you start relying on years of experience, you start getting into tier 2, and then when you start getting into like subject matter experts, or you need to have that 10th year of experience, or you've really pushed those really high level certifications, then you start hitting that kind of tier 3 range. So some people take it more on different types of infrastructure or services is where the tiers are. I kind of take it more on what type of resource do you need.
Okay. Yeah, it's industry specific probably a little bit too. How big is your team right now? And like as the like kind of owner operator inside of that, what's like the ideal size for you?
So it's kind of a dirty secret that most managed service providers who offer 24/7 support have a white label help desk. Sure. So we're no different, and I'm probably not supposed to say that, but
it is what it is.
It is, and so finding
if someone has the expectation that you're going to hire someone to sit by a phone for 24 hours a day, I think that's unrealistic.
To me, it's a benefit to be upfront about it, because I've worked with a lot of MSPs where you just get handed that cell phone and it's 3:00 in the morning, and then you get a call, and if you handed it to the wrong person who doesn't have that skill set, they can't help you out.
Yeah.
Right. And you're hoping that they're awake, and there's really kind of no incentive for them to be awake because they're getting paid like, I don't know, $10 a phone call or something ridiculous. So going with that white label solution let us, make sure we always have an expert, people who understand that relationship, they understand that client, and they do have the full tier 1, 2, tier 3 built into it. And so that kind of makes the team have like 50 extra people sitting there, which is great. And they can be an overflow for us when we get, when I'm doing something like this, I can make sure more things go in their direction. If my team has time off,
sounds just like a nice
direction.
service you have for your clients. I mean,
I really like it. I really like it.
I don't know why it has a bad rap.
I had to go through a few of them before I found one that really just had the right people skills and had the right technical skills. The platform I'm not really excited about, how we interact with them on the back end.
But that's your problem, not your
Exactly. So and that's exactly how I look at it. We can work on that integration component, but we can't
let that headache be your headache instead of your client's.
You got it. You got it. I'd much rather them be happy and excited and get the best support, and I'll worry about how to make it shove into our system.
Yeah.
And then we've got 6 including myself, other people who are on the staff.
Okay.
And then we've got a bazillion consultants and contractors that we've worked with over the years. There's just some places it doesn't make sense to hire internally. You don't want to sit a guy for $150, $200K a year just to wait for the 3 times a year he's needed. So
Yeah. No.
I'm a big fan of, pulling the best resource when you need that resource.
Yeah, we do the exact same thing. Of
course.
Just me and Justin, we have some remote help. And then when we get a big enough project, it makes sense. We get to scale up and bring in a DP who's a special, bring in specialists to kind of make the project even better, right?
Absolutely.
Depending on the budget and stuff. So.
And I've worked with like really big MSPs who have, 200, 300 people. Mm-hmm. And the service that they provide, I swear, is a fraction as good as our service, because we do go out of our way to find the right fit for the customer for what we do. We don't just staff it. So we say we have a body here ready when something happens. We make sure it's the best body that we can basically afford and make some margin on.
Yeah. You have to as a business owner.
Yeah.
So then what do you feel like, and maybe you could put this in your own words, is the biggest differentiator? I feel like you've touched on this a little bit already, but what's the biggest differentiator between you and your competition right now?
So we have a few. I think my business undergraduate gives me a lot more perspective on how to talk to the business about what their goals and their needs are. If we can't have that conversation about technology as it relates to the business, I feel like you're really not selling good business solutions, right? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's what it really kind of comes down to. We're an anti-hate company. If you see something, say something. Okay. The clients don't get too excited about that one, but I've worked in this industry long enough to know that there really aren't enough people of color. There aren't enough minorities. There aren't enough women in this industry, and some of them provide the best perspective that I have not thought of. And so for us, we really embrace it, and that's a really important part of my business.
Yeah.
Other differentiators are going to be, I do have top secret, I guess it's expired, but top secret clearance, and so that shows like a level of trust. Yeah. And I've done a lot of things that I love to chat about, where I've been inside the nuclear reactor. I worked on the Holmes case, and we've got a lot of those types of stories where it kind of shows that ability to go into some place unknown with really kind of no forethought on how it could be approached, and then solve that problem anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a really kind of unusual skill set I don't think I see from a lot of other managed service providers.
Are you able to give me an example? I feel like you've talked about that a lot, coming up with creative solutions. Like, I'd love to hear a story maybe about like something that you came up with for one of your clients that really helped them.
Let's see, a short one would be the nuclear reactor. So inside a nuclear reactor, you can't have moving parts, but you have to have a server that needs to be able to live inside a place that's being irradiated hundreds of degrees, and you have to have the server report the whole time through this entire run that cycle
Can't
goes.
have moving parts?
No moving parts.
Okay.
in a 150 degree area.
Yeah.
And you have zero chance of being able to go over there and like power cycle the thing.
You
can't turn it off and
you
turn
can't
it
send
back
someone
on.
And can't kill someone. You just got to make it to the button and hit it, and then sorry, but you're the sacrificial lamb.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't modify the plant. You can't start drilling holes because you can run wires and stuff. You have to work with whatever's already there. So,
okay.
We had pictures that we utilized and built a custom OEM computer server using kind of some parts that really kind of weren't meant for it, where we kind of looked at the engineering that occurs for electrical, like off the power grid, and we started finishing and refining the heat sinks that they use and attaching it to components that didn't normally have them, right? So we were trying to dissipate as much heat as possible. And then we had some certain kind of way that we did kind of force it so that we could do restarts anytime we wanted to. We really worked on the software to make sure that if we saw something, it would automatically reboot itself. So there were a lot of really kind of cute tricks we put in place to try to make it so it stayed up. It just came off its run. It didn't go down one time. It never had to restart. It was really
How
great.
long was it up?
So the cycles are 1.5 years.
Okay.
So, but I don't work there anymore. So I don't know what the plan is to keep it in place, or if they're going to.
If it never came offline, I imagine they would just want to run it back. Right?
That does happen, where they like push it into the ground a little bit further than it's supposed to go. So I'd be interested to see how long it holds up if they go that route.
Yeah.
For me, I'd rather them swap it out, put a new one that they know works. Maybe just use the old one as a backup.
Gotcha.
But I'm disconnected from that project now.
Okay. So, cool. That's awesome, though. That's a really good solution.
Yeah,
I like that.
It was fun.
That's fun. That's coming up with creative solutions. Is that pricier though for your clients to come up with these like elaborate creative solutions?
So the thing that's wild about going inside a nuclear reactor is that when you walk in and you're not a current employee, they do a background check on you from the last time that you had your background checked.
Okay.
And so that process just to go through that is thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And our time to just sit there and wait for them to do that background check, because you're qualified to do this type of work. So they're charging like $400 an hour, you're still charging for you to sit on this like little seat while they do the background check. So I think all in, just on labor, I think that company spent like $45,000 just for the sake of us being able to stick that server in there. The server itself is, I don't know, $10,000.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how that works.
Yeah, it really is.
It's the cost of doing that type of business, though.
But it has to be perfect. It has to run for those years on end in a radiated environment without being touched and focused on. So at the end of the day, there is a business justification for it.
Yeah, we had to do a big background check when we went and filmed a project on the New York Stock Exchange floor. And to get on there, you had to have a background check and all that. And I did not equate for the time and investment that it was going to be to do that. And so it took I didn't really think about it when I was like quoting the project. It was definitely something that kind of ate on that. But having that experience was super fun. It was worth it. I didn't really care, but it was cool.
The best part about that story, which has nothing to do with the technology, is when they're doing that background check, you're completely surrounded by armed soldiers, right? And they've got nothing to do themselves. They're a little bored, right? And so they'll kind of mess around and be intimidating and, kind of hold their weapon.
Were they rude?
No. They're I know that they're just screwing around, because I'm ex-military. And actually, I brought that up to them at one point, and then we did the whole, you're a National Guard, you're Navy.
What do you
so,
do?
You have to do those every time you see somebody else from the military, right? It was a lot of fun kind of being harassed by, the gentlemen who were very much taking their job very seriously,
I imagine. Yeah.
But at the same time, like putting a couple jokes here and there. It was really a good time.
Cool. That's awesome. And when we talked before, you had mentioned something about like small businesses sort of missing a lot of opportunities to use technology to kind of enhance their business.
Sure.
Can you tell us maybe like what are some of the obvious ones? Because I think a lot of our audience are small business owners, probably much smaller than what you're used to working with. But maybe you could just kind of pitch some of the things that people should be thinking about that maybe they haven't, that could really help. They could use technology to enhance what they're already doing.
No, that's great. A CRM, customer relationship management solution, is one that I almost always see a gap in the companies that have 15 or fewer people. Okay. Especially if you do things like...
How are they managing their clients? With spreadsheets?
I think they do it off of their Outlook contacts or they don't stay on top of it. I think that's part of the issue, right? Okay. And then not taking advantage of the CRM once they put it in place. Not doing the newsletters, not sending out that information to your customers on kind of a routine basis, not updating that contact, not keeping track of, little Susie, was born on blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so you want to make sure that the next time you talk to that person, you ask how little Susie's doing, And so I think a lot of people don't fully utilize that technology. Yeah. And they can make it a little bit easier for themselves by tying it into things they already use. You can tie a lot of those into maybe your phone number, your email address. So it's kind of semi-automagic.
Automagic.
Yeah.
Is there one that you typically recommend for your clients? I'm sure it's depending on the industry and stuff.
You got it. It's really dependent on the industry.
What are some of the ones that you typically recommend?
I think HubSpot has a name for itself for a reason. It's pretty approachable for companies under like 15 people who really are learning how to work on a CRM.
They have a free version too.
They do.
That's pretty...
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's, it works well enough. It's a good place to kind of cut your teeth and figure out what your next solution should be.
Okay.
I wouldn't overinvest too much energy into it unless you just find it really kind of fits that niche for you. Okay. But it really does depend on your industry.
Yeah. Have you ever used High Level?
I haven't.
Go High Level? That's a new one. I just was checking out. So I don't know. Try to get some free advice from you. Awesome. I want to hear... Maybe like, do you have any like nightmare IT stories where you just walk into a server room and it's just a disaster, or like you walk into some hot mess of a IT solution?
I guess over the years I kind of become like desensitized to a lot of those kinds of things. So there were things when I was a little bit younger where I was like and over the years you just kind of go, well,
it is what it is.
You really have to have a lot of like emotional intelligence and empathy, I think, in order to be really successful in technology. You have to be able to let things go. And if you don't have those kinds of skill sets, you're going to have a really hard time. You're going to feel, you take things personally when customers don't do what you ask them to do. You get upset when they like shoot themselves in the foot. And so you have to be able to overcome all of that stuff. I guess the hardest thing I've got that kind of is close to that though is we've just onboarded a new client, and I love the client. They're great. They mean well, but their previous MSP did a really awful job, unfortunately, of kind of helping them out with security, setting a culture of continuous improvement and change. And so They're a very large company who are, I swear, they feel like they're 15 years behind on technology in other ways. And so they're still utilizing it, but they have huge security gaps. They've got, they just don't know what is out there and what can hurt them.
Yeah.
And so that's always.
How does that happen? How do they get so far behind with technology?
Well, so they had somebody that they liked and trusted, and that worked pretty well for a long time. And then that last MSP basically kind of shift some resources, changed. I've actually talked to that owner over there. He admits that there were some places where they dropped the ball, but effectively they basically stopped moving the ball forward 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And a lot of times, and I've been through this a number of times when we've acquired folks, that MSP is mad at the company's mad at the MSP, and it ultimately comes down to a lack of communication between the two, right? Okay. The managed service provider there felt like they weren't being heard, and so they stopped trying to be heard, and they stopped pushing new projects that would help them out. And the existing company just noticed that they were having more and more issues and more outages, and were wondering why these things weren't moving forward.
Yeah,
and so
it cost them a bunch of money,
right? And it creates this like culture gap between the two, where it's an adversarial relationship. So
okay, then you guys kind of swoop in and save the day.
That's the goal, and then maintaining the relationship though is critical. You have to make sure it doesn't get to that point, so it requires always being a part of their team.
Yeah. How often are you talking to your clients that are on your business model? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you talking to them every day, every week, every month? Hopefully never. What is it? How does that work?
It entirely depends on what that business needs, and sometimes it depends on the contract a little bit too.
Okay.
There are definitely companies that we talk to a little bit less because we're not sure we want to hold on to them anymore, because you do outgrow clients if the relationship just isn't kind of moving in the direction that you need it to, or they start gapping on their own technology. You just kind of let those go. Don't try to hold on to them and try to make more money off of them. Find somebody who will partner with them the way they want to be partnered, and stop worrying about it.
Yeah. Go find a client that fits your business model a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah. You feel like you can help out better.
Exactly. Yeah.
I asked you about prices earlier, and I think maybe we dodged it. But I just curious. You don't have to give numbers, but like, how do you structure your pricing with your clients?
So, it's tricky. You have to look at every single client and try to figure out where they are with the technology that they have. Are they already paying for things that are inside your normal bucket? But MSPs do have a specific number, and it's really easy to Google and try to figure out how much money they're kind of looking for. In the Denver market, you're looking at about $150 an endpoint, up to as much as $500 an endpoint, depending on the amount of security that you put into it. Endpoint's going to be like a computer.
Per computer. Okay.
Or server.
Device. What about like phone?
Sometimes we'll roll those in. If you start getting into the $300 or $400 ones, you're probably including the phone at that point.
Okay.
So about 150. You're probably getting antivirus. You're getting business day support.
Is that annual or month? I don't even know.
A month.
Okay.
So you're going to get like business day support. You can be able to call in, open up tickets. Antivirus, SOC, Security Operations Center. So if something does go sideways, we've got another team that can help out and jump out, and their entire job is just security. So like those things will still be included in the $150. When you start getting into like the $200, $250, you start looking at 24/7 support, maybe answer the phone a little bit faster for them, return those calls a little bit faster, right? You'll set those SLAs to be a little tighter for them.
What's the number where they get direct line? You get your direct line.
So I lost an employee last year who was just an amazing onboard specialist, and unfortunately he passed away to cancer. And since then, I have become the onboard specialist, because it's really hard to find somebody who can go into an environment and really understand a new customer, document it, and make it so that it's available for the rest of the team.
You got to have that mix of like personality, like being super personable, but also being super technical and being able to understand both of those things. And you don't find that person very often. They're hard to find. Yeah.
They're extremely hard to find. You can find one party, you can find the other party. You're not going to.
We kind of see that in the video world too a little bit. There's like the nerds who geek out about the video specs, like, the new camera, 8K, raw, 10-bit, and then there's like the super personal ones who don't really care about that, but it's hard to find those people who can do both. Yeah, absolutely.
But I've kind of really embraced being there during that onboard process. That's like a 3 to 6 month process, and you get to know a lot about that customer and what they're trying to do and where their issues are, and that puts you in a really prime situation to be able to write down the list of things that they need to improve and grow and change, not just here's what we sell and here's what we sold you.
That sounds like the funnest part of the job to me.
It's also the most stressful, right? I mean, these are the times where you're trying to undo whatever was already broken.
Sure.
You're
Without
you're
any
changing
downtime,
culture.
too.
That's it. Yeah,
I don't even know how y'all do that.
yeah, that is the struggle with being the one
Like,
who
we're
does
switching
that
over
right
to this
now.
thing, but we got to make it seamless, you know.
Right.
So.
Right. But once you get through that phase, we try to phase me out, and then I go into the quarterly business reviews and monthly reviews, and then I always want to sit on the help desk for 5-10 hours a week. I need to be able to understand what everyone is seeing and what everyone's challenge is, and then I'm going to spot check a bunch of tickets just to make sure I'm still aligned for it. That way, when I do those monthly reviews and those quarterly reviews, I'm not coming in as just some guy who's selling stuff. Right? I'm going to be able to come in there and say, here's what we've noticed over this last month or 3 months. Here's where we should go, or here's what we recommend. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, we can wrap up. The buzzword is AI, artificial intelligence, in the tech world. So I got to ask you about that. Does that scare you? Does that excite you? What are your thoughts on the direction that AI is going? Are you guys trying to integrate that as much as possible?
I think people have a sense of what AI could do, and it might not be connected to the reality of what AI can do.
Sure.
There are some places where I'm fairly concerned with it. I think the more we automate some of those jobs with AI, we lose accuracy. We lose kind of a piece of humanity, to be honest.
I agree.
I saw that
Also, that creative problem solutions, right? Creating solutions to the problems, that creativity part, I think we lose as well.
Right, absolutely. Well, and it's not to get too political, but we see a lot of money get continuously funneled up to a handful of people, and the people here no longer have these jobs available to them, and there's no mechanism to put that money back down here. We can't just keep funneling money up to the handful of people. At some point, we've got to really be considerate of what are we going to do with this. The threat or the promise of AI is to make our lives easier, but it's not making those people's lives easier. It's created a new issue for them. So, I think we need to do more on a political side to try to figure out what are we going to do with AI to protect people whose jobs have been replaced by AI. Yeah. So that could be, work programs. They should maybe, if they have an interest in it, they could learn how to work on the AI. So, there's a lot of different places they can go, but we have to do something to make sure that those jobs aren't just removed.
Yeah. And people find a lot of self-worth and value in their job and doing things for other people. And so you take that away. We might have a societal crisis at some point.
And I think we all are on LinkedIn and see that almost everything on LinkedIn is just AI these days. There's no good content on LinkedIn these days, and a lot of other platforms like that too. And we're seeing that with news agencies where they just consume something from AP and then reword it with AI and dump out some garbage. So, the quality of work is just...
Quantity is going through the roof.
Yeah, exactly.
No shortage of quantity.
That's right.
It's all, there's a billion things you can read out there
and
watch. Dude, I've been seeing a lot of AI videos popping up now. And while they're pretty wild, you know what I mean? AI video generating stuff is not great yet, but it's gonna be great. It's going there, so that's something that we have to think about as well.
Absolutely.
If you can just type some words into a computer and get the shots that you need, and what do we do?
Well, and we start looking at the can my image be used for commercials?
Yeah, or they're skimming
our
videos, right? They're watching our YouTube videos and learning how to do that. So they're using our work to to feed AI and
exactly
and teach it. So.
Yeah, they're looking at old movies, they're scanning those in, and so they're gonna be able to reproduce a Marvel's movie. Does that mean that that those actors should be compensated for their likeness being used? But what
and
if
all the
they
people
change
who
it
worked
slightly?
on the movie,
exactly, and you start getting into how are you going to make this equitable for everyone? And anyone who thinks that their job doesn't have some risk of AI, you're probably wrong. Almost every job has some level of AI attached to it or could be automated. So
agreed.
I think we really have to do something as a country to figure out how we're going to protect people.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. Awesome. Why don't you tell people where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, a lot of different ways. Redbigfoot.com. You could call our phone number. It's 720-647-3363. Sorry, all the numbers are really close. So 720-647-3363. But redbigfoot.com is the best place you can go. And actually, if you go there, you can schedule a meeting with me, and then I can give you a free consultant. I'll learn about your business and try to give you some ideas of things that you can do to improve. And if you don't use us, that's totally fine. You can take that information, go anywhere you want to.
I'm going to schedule that appointment right now.
Perfect.
Awesome, good. Mark. Well, thanks for your time, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Cool.